All right, guys, so we're going to be doing a financial health check, and I'm not in my usual setup, and I don't have my mic, so bear with me today. So let's review the situation first, and then I'm going to take you through specific steps once I show you kind of the financials as well of what I would do if I were you in this situation. Of course, this is not advice, but this is just my thinking, the way I approach finances, the way I approach our personal finances, as well as a lot of students within Budgetdog Academy. And so let's go through this, guys. This is a 29-year-old single individual making over $100,000 per year. They have two kids, 4 months and 6. They, on a scale of 1 to 10, they are right in the middle at a 5 on the confidence around their financial picture. And they're going to be really impressed about what I'm about to show them and what we can actually do. They have a 5 out of 10, right in the middle again, on the mindset around money. This is a very important concept. Do not skip this or underestimate how important mindset is when it comes to money. It is super critical. They have cash on hand of about $14,000. We'll show the exact numbers in a second. They use Vanguard for their investments. They have current retirement assets of around $40,000, and that's broken out between a 401k, $17,000, TSP at $20,000, and an IRA of $3,800. Thank you for your service. And again, this is a no name. I'm not going to share names. This is confidential, but thank you for your service. I see a TSP, meaning that they are in military or at least war at one point. They have current non-retirement assets of $1,094, which are consisting of a taxable brokerage of $1,094. They have monthly, how much money per month are you currently investing? About $2,100. So phenomenal job there. That is a great head start. You are ahead of the game. Congratulations. And that's allocated by this breakout here. So we have a 401k, $636 a month. We have a IRA of $583 a month. We have a taxable brokerage of $1,000 a month. Two parent taxable brokerages of $250 a piece, which essentially are, I'm assuming, based on the terminology, are two taxable brokerage accounts, but they're earmarked for a child in the future, and they're maxing out the IRA based on that number. So congratulations on that. Really, really good start, really strong start. How much current debt do you have that's non-mortgage? $21,000. We'll do the breakdown in a second. This is $15,000 at 7% for their car, so it's a pretty expensive car debt. And they have $6,000 on a credit card, 0% for 12 months. We will talk about that. Life insurance is through employer life insurance, $200,000, $4.80 a month. And then they do not have a tax planner, they do not have a financial advisor, and they do not have a estate plan of any sort, trust, will, or any directives. Okay, so that's a rundown of the situation. Now, let's look at the actual financials to really break this down. So I will start with the balance sheet over here. So if I zoom in and I kind of do, whoa, that's really, really aggressive zoom in. Give me a sec. Okay, so we zoom in and we can kind of look at their actual breakdown, right? The no names on 12/31. We have some cash sitting here, $16,000 in total. We have some Dogecoin and Shiba Inu coin on Robinhood in their cryptocurrency portfolio. We'll talk about that. No HSA. We have a brokerage account, barely really doing much, $102. We have an IRA. We have 3 401ks. We have a TSP. We have a 401k, I guess a fourth 401k. And we have a car worth $23,000. And we have 2 credit cards, $8,900 in total, which was a little different than our initial assessment, Discover and Chase. And then we have a car liability, which is worth $23,000, having a $15,000 liability on it right now. All in all, net worth is at $60,000. So it's just the total of assets, $85,000, minus the total of liabilities at $24,000. There is so much opportunity here, and I'm excited to get into it. We do not, interestingly enough, have a amortization tool. And so that was not provided. During these assessments, you should be uploading that. So I don't know if that just hasn't been done, but we'll walk through that as well today. So I'm going to walk you guys through a lot. Let's cover every single step of the equation. So I'm going to break some of the steps down here. I'm going to put 8 life insurance assessment, and then I'm going to put number 9. Let's keep that off for now. No, let's do that now. 9 would be 401k assessment. Okay. So, number 1 is paying off credit card debt today. very first thing I would do. We have $16,000 in cash, and we have 8,962 in credit cards. I do not want to have this for 0% for 12 months and play the credit card game. We're paying this off today, literally today. So I would take the total balance here and I would subtract out the total balance here. We'd zero that out today. We'd have $7,000 updated cash position, which is enough for sure, especially when you're playing with credit card. That's like playing with fire. We don't want to play with fire. I'm getting rid of this debt today without question, no questions asked, and we are bringing our cash position down to $7,125. This may feel uncomfortable for some people. I will say always understand what your limit is to go down, but also realize that this will be a costly mistake if you don't aggressively pursue it. And a lot of times this is a mental stretcher than an actual like legitimate financial stressor. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to get down to $7,100 to get rid of credit card debt. This is an optimal decision and it's pretty universally recognized. Number two is I'm readjusting our budget. So let's go over to the budget and assess what's going on. So for anybody that's used our sheets in the past, part of Millionaire Club or Budgetdog Academy, you will realize that this right here is a list of expenses. It's called budget expenses. And this down here are all of our investments. And what we have done is we do a zero-based budget, meaning over here specifically, we will assess total income minus our fixed and variable expenses minus our savings and investments. And based on what I'm seeing here, we are duplicating a lot. So specifically these, let's call it 5 lines right here, we have on 2 separate sheets, so therefore it's duplicating. So I don't want them here because of that reason, and it's going to throw off our cash flow position, okay? So I'm taking these out because they're all represented over here, which is good, and we're going to assess this in particular. Now, if I look at the updated cash flow position or cash out position every single month, it's about $5,900 as of now. Before making this next adjustment I'm going to show you. But initially I want to look at this and I want to assess this and I want to look at this from this perspective. So I want to make sure I know how much expense, fixed and variable, is going to come out every single month because I want to get to zero. And as you can see, this is pretty dang close to zero-based budgeting. Now before they had the duplicates on, it was obviously overstating it in an incorrect way, or understating it, let's call it. Overstating expenses, understating cash flow. But now with the removal of the duplicates, we are close to we can get with the zero-based budget. Pretty dang good, pretty great situation to be in. And so what I'm going to do is assess the remaining position of where we're at. So when I look at this budget expense estimate, and I go through all these things, and I typically don't make a big fuss about much stuff. I would check, some big movers like this. So let's call it 1650, which I don't know because I will say this real quick before I even get into that. When I look at 1650, your actuals show 1150. So I don't know if this is maybe an accident, but your total budget says 1650 for housing. So just making sure your actuals and your budget lines right there. So if I take 1650 and I divide it by my take-home pay, I like to get an idea. I'm at the 20% range, which is phenomenal. I never want to go above the 25% range when I do my take-home, my mortgage payment divided by my take-home pay. So you are well within reason here. My car insurance is fairly expensive. However, I see this dad car payment, and so I don't necessarily know if that is reflective of this car that we have over here on the balance sheet. As of now, when I look at this, it just says car number 1. So I assume that was your car. And therefore, if you have an outstanding liability down here, $15,000, I would assume, based on what I'm seeing, that is potentially dad's car, because that's the only car payment I see. I do see it. No, I apologize. Take that back. I do see a second car payment. But this does raise the question. So the $400 is associated with what we just looked on the balance sheet. But if we have another car payment, I don't know if we own that car. I don't know if that's your dad's car you're just doing a favor for. We need to clarify that, because if that's our debt that we have a payment on, we need to make sure that's reflective over on the balance sheet itself. No matter if it's our car or not, if it's our debt and we're taking responsibility for it, it needs to show up here as well. There's a lot of ways you can justify that out. You also might just be doing a favor in that fact you just have an expense. There is not actually an associated debt, and that's a whole nother conversation, totally fine. So let's go back to our budget. So when we look at our budget, that's everything here. Now, the credit card payments are going to zero out because we don't have any because we paid that off. So we've zeroed out quite a bit pretty quickly. I want to bring attention to this guy right here, is irregular spending buffer, $250. I highly suggest this because you never know if you go over in groceries or something or an accident pops up. I always like a little buffer account line item. I think it's always a very wise thing to do for anybody out there. Highly suggest it. The only other thing I will bring up on the budget is this annual family travel. Not saying it's wrong, but it might be. I would highly doubt you spend $417 every month for travel. And based on what it says, annual family travel, I'm assuming this is a sinking fund. If this is a sinking fund, I hope to see it over here. And I do. Vacation sinking fund. It's off by $3, but I'm assuming this is also a duplicate. If that's the case, we want to remove that from here as well. And we have a lot less of an expense than we initially thought. And that's a very important key concept I want to drive home here, because if we don't have the accurate financials in front of us, we're going to make bad decisions. So assessing all of this is massively important. Now, with that being said, now we have $4,900 of expense. We have $2,500 of expense or of investments and savings. And if you look at our zero-based budget on our summary, we now have an extra $911. If we understand the financial ramifications of these spreadsheets and we use these effectively, we're going to find money all over the place. And we are empowered when we have the numbers in front of us. So $911, we'll get to that in a second. My next step I want to look at is going up here. So that's kind of a reassessment of the budget. We've now paid off our credit cards. We've readjusted the budget. It looks a lot different. Now our next step is paying off car debt. If I look at this car debt, I see $23,000, $23,429 of a value. And I look down here, my liability is $15,707. I'm going to take that $15,707 and it's at a 7% rate, and I'm going to go utilize the tools that we already have. So $15,707, we have a 7% rate, and our minimum payment based on, and I don't know if this is a minimum payment, but it is the payment that's suggested in the budget, is I think $400. So car payment over here is $400. So I'm going to use that as an assumption that that's the minimum payment, but whatever the minimum payment is what you want. $400. If that's the case, we will be paid off in 44 months, technically speaking. Now, I want to go back to our balance or budget, and if I know that we have a true assessment of this, which have a $911 more, we're already investing $2,500. We could do one of two things. If, in fact, I zero this out, I go here and I realize I have $3,400. Meaning, if I paused my investments for an extended amount of time and I applied that all to this car debt, how quick could I pay it off if I had $3,414? Now, I'm going to go back and keep that back there. So we also have $911. So I have two options. I could go in here and say, okay, let's do $3,414. If I apply this extra money to this debt, I will be debt-free in 4 months. Is it worth to pause investment for 4 months to pay off my car debt, to then get an extra $400 in cash flow back per month, or is it not? You want to ask yourself that question. I will say this, in my humble opinion, what I would do, because that's what this series is about, I would pay a 7% off debt in a heartbeat, especially if I got $400 back in cash flow per month and it only took 4 months. I would personally do that. That's what I'm going to do today. The other thing you could assess is, let's not do anything to investments, just continue, but put the $911 we found and we paid off in 12 months. That's your decision-making framework that you could think through. So I'm going to use that and say, hey, I'm paying this thing off in 4 months. We're done with it. And then after the 4 months, I'm getting $400 cash flow back. And so if I go back here and I assess this balance sheet, I have now paid off my debt, car debt, and I'm going to put in 4 months, boom. And I've also readjusted, let's do a plus $400 cash flow from that move. And I don't know if I can do plus, but plus a $400 cash flow. That's a big win right there. Now I want to realign my cash flow for my goals. And so therefore, at the end of the 4 months, I have an extra $400. I want to go back to the balance or the budget. I want to go into my estimates tab. I want to remove this $400 because I no longer have that car payment. And I want to assess my new monthly spend. My new monthly spend is only $45.49. It's a beautiful thing. If I then bring back my current investments that I have $2,503. I have $1,300 left over. Now I'm going to take out this for now, and I'm going to move this over here just so we have it for reference. But I want to know my true free cash flow for my goals, and that's taking out all of your investments, minimum payments all over the place, and just understanding what is your income minus your current basic expenses. What is that extra free cash flow? That is what I'm referring to when I say specifically realign cash flow for goals. Now I know where my total cash flow is. Now I want to reassess my goals with all these other adjustments that have already happened. The first thing I want to do, I want to bulk up my cash emergency fund because I don't have a ton of cash in hand. Remember, I brought that cash balance down to $71.25. How do I assess how much cash I need? I want to go into my budget. I want to go into specifically my expenses, and I want to calculate 3 to 6 months. What do I feel comfortable with? And that would be, let's call it anywhere from like 13,000 to 27,000. So I'm just going to do rough rules of thumb of 13,000 or 27,000. I'll do 13.5 to make it even split. So that is my goal of cash on hand for my emergency fund. Plus, I want 1 to 2 months of expenses in my checking account. In my opinion, I think one's plenty in this situation. So I would say plus I would want about 4,500. Let's do this 4,500 in this checking account. And if I can do that, that would be making me feel really good. I would personally, I always go on the low end because I'm a pretty conservative person. But if you have no debt and you have a pretty good job and there's not a huge amount of risk, I like to lean on the lower end of cash because my taxable brokerage on the back end will be building. So that's just my personal preference. Let's say 13,500 in a high yield savings account for a savings account. So all in all, I need, let's call it $18,000 in cash. So that plus this in cash, I currently have, as we know from the balance sheet, $71.25. And so therefore I need a remainder to get my $18,000 goal to have a full checking and savings the way I want it, $10,875. I also know if I go to my, let's call it my balance sheet. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I apologize. My budget. I know over here on the summary tab, I have $3,800 to work with. Remember, this is 4 months into this process. If I go over here and I assess 3814, so I take this 3814 and I move it over here, and I do that divided by that, it's only going to take me about 2 to 3 months to get my emergency fund and also cash position fully funded. So that means if I take this approach, which is a beautiful approach, I am literally debt-free. If I can find my place on the balance sheet, let's go back to the balance sheet. I am now assessing my position. I am debt-free. I have paid off my credit card debt. I paid off my car debt. I have an additional $400 cash flow plus all the adjustments we made. I now have paid off my debt-free across the board. Now I'm going to bulk up my emergency fund. That is all going to happen in 7 months from day one. So in 7 months, I could be debt-free with an emergency fund and feeling totally confident about going forward with this process. I personally love aggression towards one thing at a time. Some people like to spread it out and they make things more complicated and typically don't have good results. As you know, that's a human thing. That's not my opinion. That's just typically what happens. My next piece of the puzzle is I would drop these dang meme coins, get them out of your life. They're just going to be a gambling addiction that adds to the picture. You also don't own these coins because they're in Robinhood anyway. Any Bitcoin or any cryptocurrencies in Robinhood, you own the price. You don't actually own the Bitcoin itself or any of the cryptocurrency itself. It's just a price. So you're guessing or gambling that price is going to be more in the future. That is the only thing you have here, and I'm not a big fan of that. Drop meme coins, pretty easy. Number 7 is now we have, remember, $3,800 at play per month. I want to standardize my investment plan. I'm going to use a framework we operate out of to give you guys some game here. Now, I'm going to use an estimate based on income, and I don't know exactly, but I'm going to go off the take-home income. So Let's just say if we standardize this, we have $3,800 to work with, technically speaking. Let's just take this number. This is my take-home pay. I'm going to make this and B4, divide that by 75%, and I will get $11,000 is my gross income, roughly speaking, times that by 12. That's my annual income. This is the annual income I want to work off. I want to take a 15%, and I want to make sure 15% is calculated. This for my framework here. Do that times that. 20,071 is what my number is that I have. If I divide that by 12, I have 1672, but as you know, you have about 3814, so you have extra money truly. So 3814. Let's do the exact number, 3814. So that's how much I have. At a bare minimum, I need to use this 1672 for retirement. My first step is I'm going to get the match in my 401k. I don't know what that's going to be because I have not asked that question of what your match is at work. But what I'm going to do is essentially assume you're getting a 3% match to make it easy. So up to match, take this times 0.03. I know I need at least, let's do 0.03%. I need 4,000. That times 0.03. 4,014. My second step is a ESA or a ESPP, Employee Stock Purchase Plan. I'm going to assume we don't have that. So I'm going to do second step, 0. My third step is a Roth or traditional IRA. I'm going to max that out. My fourth step is the difference of my 20,000 or 15% of my gross income minus steps 1 through 3. So I'm going to subtract that out, and I have 9,056. That goes into my 401k. So I'm going to do 401k, ESPP, IRA, 401k. I'm going to stop there. My 401k is this plus this, and my IRA is this. So I instantly know my 401k should be that, and my IRA should be this. I then set up an automatic investing plan every 2 weeks for both of those. This one comes directly out of my paycheck. To calculate the percentage, I would do my 13,000 divided by my total income. I have about a 9 to 10% contribution percentage. And then I go into my IRA since that's independent of an employee. And I set up $7,000 divided by 26 pay periods per year, $269.23 to max that out. I know instantly my retirement is set for the most part. Obviously, this is generalizing. This is not exact situation. My next one, I want to do my HSA potentially. I want to consider if I have an HSA. If I do and I'm single, I would do $4,150 a year in this. And then what I would do is I would take my remainder, let's do 3813 times 12. I have $45,000 per year. The first $20,000 is here, which tells me I have $45,000 minus my total amount to date, and I have $21,544.16. If I sum this all up, I have my $45,765, and my framework is matched, and this goes into a taxable brokerage account. And then I can say my HSA and my taxable brokerage account, and I can say exactly the total amounts annually that will go in here. And that's a beautiful setup right here. So I know annually, here is my mix of investments, and that sets me up for a lot of success. Obviously, this is generalized. I don't know the situation exactly. You can do these on biweekly pay periods divided by 26 and just evenly distribute throughout the year into low-cost index funds and ETFs. Dollar cost average these amounts every single 2 weeks into these various accounts, picking index funds, ETFs, and keeping it super simple and diversifying. That is a solid investment plan. I go over here and I can standardize that investment plan, check the box. My next thing is I want to ensure that my insurance is applicable or appropriate. And I realize this is through my employer. That is dangerous, and it's only $200,000. Quick rule of thumb is if you have dependents in this situation, take 10 to 12x your income, 133, times 10, times 12. So anywhere from like 1.3 to 1.6 million is probably where you want an insurance policy, 20 to 30 year term life insurance policy, anywhere from like 1 to 1.6 million. 1.5 would be a healthy balance. And that would be a term life policy, 20 years. Go through Policy Genius, super simple. Get a quote. You shouldn't be quoted very high here at 29 years old. You're probably in the $30 to $40 per month range. Add that today. Do not wait. That's an extremely important piece of it. Assuming you have dependents in the situation, which you do. I know you have 2 dependents, kids at least. And so do not risk their well-being if somebody were to pass away in the unfortunate event. Last but not least is I would consolidate these 401ks potentially. We have Aptiv, Voya, Slavic, and SCSO. Whatever the last 3 are, I would likely just roll those 3. Let's say these are the old 3. This entire balance into the current 401k. I think that would be the easiest, most sensible. There would be no tax consequences because you would stay pre-tax or Roth and just keep it in the new 401k, assuming that new 401k is great. If not, you always could watch my what to do with an old 401k video that does walk through other options. In short, you could roll it to a rollover IRA, you could move it to a Roth IRA and pay taxes, or you could also cash out, or you could leave it as is. I guess there's 5 options. Those 4 plus obviously rolling into the current. I personally think it would probably be easiest to roll to current, but again, it just depends. With that being said, guys, that's a wrap on a situation here, and that's a really good rundown to give you guys some extreme detail as to how I would assess and see this through my eyes. Again, this is what I would do. This isn't like exactly what you should do. If you're watching this and you know this is your situation, take this with a grain of salt. Remember, if you guys want to upgrade to the Budgetdog Academy, that is where we really deep dive into this. But there's a lot of area of opportunity, and I hope you guys take this and run with it, and I will talk to everybody soon.